Organizations of all sizes have never been more reliant on technology than they are now. But larger businesses specifically, often spread out across the globe with millions of users in dozens of countries, are especially reliant on sophisticated software that can coordinate their operations and handle vast amounts of data with ease. When you need enterprise-level technology solutions, how do you know what to look for? Well, let's talk to a couple people who know that better than just about anyone. Welcome to Momentum, a podcast by Jotform, where we talk about the technology, productivity tips, insights, and best practices that help us move forward in business and in life. My name is Elliot, and today I'm here with Tolga Sakman and Tim Shull from the Jotform Enterprise team. Welcome to the show today, guys.
Thanks, Elliot.
Morning.
Great to have you. So today, of course, I want to focus on all things enterprise. I think this topic could be valuable for a few different types of audiences. Obviously, for those who are actively engaged in the enterprise space, whether they work for an enterprise team or are on the client side utilizing enterprise-level services, as well as informative for everyone else, people like me, who see enterprise options listed for pretty much every technology we encounter, all touting this list of sophisticated features. But we don't really know what lies beyond that button that says contact enterprise or contact sales. So I think having you guys on the show today will really help shed some light on this aspect of the technology space. So maybe we start just by you guys giving a brief background on who both of you are, your roles at Jotform, and how long you've been working in enterprise.
Sure. I'll kick it off, Elliot. So my name is Tolga Sakman. I'm the VP of Enterprise Sales here at Jotform. Been here 2 years. I was responsible for coming in and building the team. Tim here is part of that team. We're growing, we're expanding. There's a huge need for Jotform Enterprise, so I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
Good morning. Tim Shull here. I head up the West Coast sales team. Been working for Tolga for about a year and a half. In sales in total, have 30 years of experience selling to enterprises, both hardware, software, and finally SaaS, where I just fell in love.
Great. Well, like I said, it's wonderful to have both you guys on the show. I figured let's lay some context, I guess, specifically for the Jotform Enterprise program. You know, Jotform, as many of our listeners will probably know, started as a freemium business model. We're still a freemium business model, primarily geared towards smaller organizations to start with. But eventually, we've now transitioned to adding a full enterprise side of our business. So can you shed some light on what led to that? What were the difficulties in kicking off a dedicated enterprise program?
Sure. As you said, Jotform has been around since 2006. We have more than 11 million users on our platform today, on the standard platform. Any given day, 20,000 or more people will sign up for it. So it's a massive platform growing rapidly. And all of these 11 million plus users are really what we call single user plans, meaning only one person can log in to create forms. She's the only one who can manage those forms, and most importantly, she's the only one who can access the submission data, right? About 3 years ago, we launched Jotform Enterprise specifically for the multi-user scenario for the organizations. This is where you have multiple people collecting information for similar or different purposes, and you may or may not want them to have access to each other's data. An example that I use all the time is, you might have an organization with, say, HR people collecting sensitive employee data internally. Maybe marketing is using forms to survey consumers out there. Finance is using forms to collect credit card data, credit card payments. You don't want your marketing or your finance teams to be able to see the data HR is collecting, right? Because it's sensitive, confidential data. On the flip side, though, you want all 10 of your HR people to be able to collaborate that data with each other. So Jotform Enterprise is about giving organizations a centrally managed multi-user environment where you get to control who gets to see what based on their roles and responsibilities. Now, to create this multi-user environment, we set up a dedicated server for each of our enterprise customers. And that dedicated server gives you a few distinct benefits. The first one is the obvious one. Your forms and your data are physically removed from the shared server environment, so that if anything that happens on that environment does not impact your server. Secondarily, because it's a dedicated server, we are able to give you a custom domain name. In some cases, customers want more than one custom domain name, which we can accommodate. And that gives you the brand identity that you want. Your forms, instead of being forms.jotform.com/register, it's more like forms.yourdomain.com/register.
The larger brands will probably find that really attractive.
Exactly. Not only for internal, but also for external data collection. When you're sending out links, it actually looks like an extension of your brand identity, your website. The other benefit of the dedicated server is we are able to integrate with our customers' single sign-on solution. So that gives you the IT security, where your users, instead of using a separate username and password, they will be using their corporate email credentials to get into their accounts. And that way, and this is convenient for the users who are creating forms, managing them, accessing data. But from an IT security perspective, when somebody leaves the organization, you're able to just cut off their email, and their access to Jotform Enterprise also goes away. A side benefit of the SSO integration, which I believe in some cases is even bigger, is we're able to SSO protect internal-facing forms. For instance, for HR, for internal finance approval processes. You're able to make sure that people authenticate themselves using their corporate email credentials to even see the form. Not only that, we're even able to pre-fill sections of the form with your information from the corporate directory. Like, as soon as you see the form, your name, your email, your department, your supervisor, they're automatically there. And that way, you're bringing the noise down to zero. And most importantly, you're making sure that the person who's filling out the form is exactly who they say they are, right? And we have a lot of higher education customers, for instance, who are taking advantage of this for students or faculty or staff-facing forms. A couple of the things I want to mention, and these are super important as well. The standard plans have some limitations around number of forms, number of form submissions per month, number of API calls per day, whereas with Enterprise, none of those limits apply. So it's an unlimited usage platform. And lastly, and not leastly, is the standard plans have access to support through online forums only, meaning there's nobody to talk to whenever you have a problem. Whereas with Enterprise, we have a dedicated team of enterprise support engineers who are able to answer your questions directly, quickly. They know you by name, you know them by name. But perhaps most importantly, if something cannot be resolved over a quick email exchange, they're able to say, let's jump on a Zoom call, let's do a screen share. That type of real-time hand-holding sessions are really important to our enterprise customers. So to sum it up, if you are using forms to do mission-critical applications, either internally or externally within your organization, you want enterprise-level security. You want SLAs, you want uptime promises, you want error response time, error resolution time promises, and this is what we offer with Jotform Enterprise.
Sure. Tim, anything to add on to that? I feel like that was a very thorough response.
Tolga's done that once or twice. The thing with single sign-on that it makes it so attractive for enterprises is it makes it look like their own product. Jotform totally disappears from the product. And especially important if you're doing collecting financial information, medical information. When they see a unknown entity at the top of the URL, it looks like somebody is fishing for information.
Right.
When it comes directly from the entity that they're doing business with, they have an assurance that it's not nefarious.
Sure. So a lot of the themes that I'm getting is that the enterprise part of our business was developed to really address some very specific needs of larger companies. Up until 3 years ago, we didn't offer this. It wasn't something that was really in our consideration set. But what kind of led to that specific transition 3 years ago? Was it just a company that came to us, started asking for these features? Was it in the pipeline for a while? What led us to grow from really those single users for 12 years of our business to suddenly adding this on 3 years ago?
That's a great question, actually, Elliot. So What really led to was we have quite a few large organizations who had been using our standard platform, and they approached us and they said, you know what, we actually need to vet you guys. We want to be able to vet your security. We want to be able to centrally manage those users because, in a single user plan, the person who signed up for it technically owns not only the forms but also the data, right? So as an organization, you have zero control over what information your employees are collecting. And if somebody leaves the organization, guess what? The data that they collected on behalf of the organization leaves with them.
It's not transferable.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nightmare scenario, right? So for IT control, IT security purposes, there was a need for a solution like Enterprise. So some of our larger customers approached us, and essentially it was a product that was built to meet that demand specifically. And from there, we started with a few large enterprise customers, and then we realized that there was a huge potential here, and there was a huge need for it. So it evolved into what we now call Jotform Enterprise.
Sure. Yeah. What are some of these use cases or industries that you see kind of flocking to enterprise? Are there some recurring themes that you see, or how has that grown as part of our business?
Absolutely. We have quite a few examples. You want to kick it off, Tim? What's the industries are using?
Sure. Bread and butter is probably healthcare. In part because of the pandemic going on, but also the need, they're starting to wake up on the flexibility and customizability that Jotform brings. The speed at which they can come to market with a survey, with a questionnaire, with a compliance issue that they're able to allow their employees to watch a video and physically sign off saying, yes, I've seen this video. Medical is huge opportunity for us. Government is also proving to be quite a great market for us as well.
Yeah, and I would probably add education market that I mentioned before, especially higher ed, but even the K through 12 education. Not only here in the U.S., by the way, across the globe. Organizations, schools and universities, they need to collect a lot of information from their students, either existing students or prospective students. And they're also a business, right? They have employees, the faculty, the staff, and they have a lot of information that needs to be collected for HR purposes, for finance purposes. And I'll give you a good example, actually. One of our first enterprise customers that led us down this road, they use Jotform Enterprise specifically for approval processes. So let's say, for instance, as an employee, you want to buy a laptop, you go and fill out a form. And if it is less than $2,000, it goes to your immediate supervisor, and we get that information from the Active Directory. And if it's more than $2,000, it goes to the regional VP for approval. Once that person receives the notification, they click on it, they can see the form that was exact as it was filled out. And there's a section at the bottom that they say, approve or decline. If they approve, it goes to the next level of approval. If they decline, it goes back to the original submitter, gives them a chance to, reconfigure and maybe resubmit or just give up, right? But you have these processes, and this is something I want to emphasize here. We're not about building forms, right? We're about building business processes and making sure that you get obviously rid of paper, but also you get rid of workflows managed through email, because email is probably not the best venue to manage your workflows.
For sure. It sounds like a central theme to a lot of the needs that we're meeting is around the security specifically, especially for information that is sensitive in nature, financial, medical. So prior to Jotform Enterprise, did we just not have many medical institutions or financial institutions? Did they have to seek other solutions? Did we start getting a bunch when we started implementing these enterprise level security protocols? What was the evolution there?
So before Jotform Enterprise, when people needed us to respond to a security questionnaire, because we have millions of users, we just cannot scale to responding to individual requests, right? So there was essentially nothing in place to meet those demands. Whereas with enterprise, you are dealing with a central IT organization at the customer. They have specific needs. We have a security team that is dedicated to answering those questions and making sure that we are checking all the boxes from the IT security perspective, from a compliance perspective, and knock on wood, there has been no case where we have not been able to pass with flying colors.
We'll take that, absolutely. And is that I assume that's a crucial selling point to gaining the business, is the fact that we have that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Are we seeing many of our enterprise users, and I guess this is just a question for enterprise technology in general, do we see a lot of users upgrade from being standard level users, or are we seeing a lot of new enterprise users who were never Jotform customers come in specifically drawn to our enterprise program?
That's a great question, and I'll start off and I'll kick it over to Tim. It's a mix, right? The majority of let's say around 70% of our customers are coming from existing Jotform standard plan users, and they are moving up because they need one of the enterprise-specific features, like they need multiple users, they need IT security questionnaire to be filled out, they need to have single sign-on integration, they need to have a custom domain, name it, right? And then there are people who are coming to us as fresh, non-standard Jotform users, coming to us, from finding us through either online search or, we have our outreach efforts, and that they have a specific need for a enterprise-grade data collection, reporting, and analytics tool, and that's how we are addressing them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, our primary market is the get-it-done person in the organization. They have a need. It has come up recurringly in their business. There's no tool out there, and the get-it-done person just goes out and finds it. And usually it starts with the Google search. They identify specific things they're looking for. Are they looking for HIPAA? Are they looking for encrypted forms? And Jotform comes up, and the discovery is made. If they have experience with Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, even better, because they've seen what a general tool looks like. They're familiar with how to build forms, and then they try Jotform, and then they see where a business that is focused on one thing, that has been doing business for 14 years, they experience the ease at which to build forms, to do a variety of things, and how quickly they can get up and running in business. And that's usually the entree, and then it spreads throughout the organization. They have such success, they talk about it, and others want to join.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's actually a good question, if I may piggyback on that. A lot of the times, somebody, like Tim said, has a specific need for data collection, reporting, analytics inside the organization. Let's say HR is a good entry point, right? They have this need, and they come to us and they deploy Jotform Enterprise an instance for the organization. And when the finance folks find out about it, because they have been using, everybody collects data, right? There's that need. Most of the time, if it is not a IT security vetted solution, if it is not a secure enough solution, or if it is just a cumbersome solution, they are always on the lookout for something better. So when they see HR using it, they talk internally, and we have a lot of our sales are actually sales within the same organization. Once we get in, it just goes around like wildfire.
Definitely. So those decision makers for the company, if we're speaking sort of to them a little bit, it makes sense. Obviously, if you're a large organization, tons of members, you need the security. An enterprise plan makes sense. If you're a really small organization, you're a solopreneur or something, a single user plan makes sense. What is the convergence level? What's the medium where you start to see more enterprise? How large is the company at which you're like, okay, I might need an enterprise plan? What if you're right on the boundary of like a single sign-on plan, single user plan, or a multi-user plan? If you're a decision maker in that company, what's going to influence you towards enterprise or towards a single user account?
Great question again. When people hear about the name enterprise, they think that, well, I'm not a large multinational
right, that's sort of the association with it.
Yeah, and this is probably not for me. I should look into a standard plan. Well, that's it cannot be further from the truth, because yes, we have super large enterprise customers out there, but we also have, doctors' offices, pharmacies that are like super regional. They have multiple locations, or they have multiple people that need to have access to data, or that need to be able to collect data for their specific purposes. And again, back to my original point, they don't want to have people accessing each other's data, right? So. And we have quite a few customers who approach us because they have that one need, right? I need multi-user, or I need single sign-on integration, and I don't need to have access to all of those other bells and whistles. Well, guess what? Nobody does. I mean, I have had 0 customers to date where they said, I need all 16 features that are enterprise specific.
Yeah.
That never happens, right? There's always one thing that they have, that there 1 or 2 things that they're after, and when they get in, they're like, oh, you know what? Actually, I should integrate this with my single sign-on. Maybe I should, bring HR into this. And so, it's really it depends on your needs. Not on your size, but really on your needs, whether you need enterprise or not.
Right, makes sense.
And that's interesting because most prospects / existing customers will come to us to solve a certain use case, point A, B, and C. And Jotform can do that 99% of the time out of the box. Yeah, no problem. But it's the realization that we are more than just solving that problem. Is the product is so wide and deep, and it collects information with signatures, legal enforceable signatures. You're able to collect documents, photos, video. It is a great collection spot. And what I like to sell with is send that link to our 10,000 pre-made forms and have people take a look at that in their organization.
Template library.
And people, through their own the lens in their job, they start saying, oh my gosh, I could do this, or I could do this. Process flows are a great example of that, is when they see what a process flow looks like and how easy it is to set up and change. That just extends the use cases into that organization.
Right. That kind of segues into my next question. Do you see a lot of our enterprise customers honing in on one use case, like they just need to make a lot of reservations and that's how they do it? Or do you see a lot more suddenly using Jotform for other things like the workflow approvals? What's their entry point? Do they normally just have the one, or do they start to expand as they get more comfortable with the product?
It's usually the former. They have one specific need. And I'll give you an example. When the COVID vaccinations became available in December of last year, we had, first it was the healthcare workers that needed to be vaccinated, right? So it was their employer, the healthcare provider, who approached us to essentially use our scheduling tool, scheduling feature to be able to schedule vaccinations for people. They have essentially invested in a Jotform Enterprise platform. And then from there, it went to HR, it went to finance, and we expanded from there. So obviously, right after the healthcare providers, it was, depending on your jurisdiction, it was the state and local governments who purchased a lot of Jotform Enterprise instances, again, specifically for managing the scheduling of their vaccinations. And it's not just about scheduling, right? Somebody schedules for a COVID vaccine, for instance. Then they receive a autoresponder email that says this is your appointment, this is your building to go to, and then when they show up, they can just show that email notification, the approval. And some customers have even embedded like a QR code where they can scan the QR code and find exactly who that person is, verify it, and when the person gets their vaccine, the nurse is able to add additional notes to that customer's line on the enterprise database, where if it's the right arm that they put the vaccine in, this is the vial number, et cetera, et cetera. So, and they need to have access to that information organization-wide, right? So it expands from that entry point.
Definitely.
And one of the things that they get so excited about is we're really good at collecting information, really good at setting up that database and have that custom server, but being able to access that information, and that's we have given them so many tools in which to do that. Google Sheets, Google Drive being a great byproduct of what we were able to do. We were able to take the information out of Jotform and put it into various things. We even have an API that enterprises can leverage and use as like a big data smorgasbord, as they can take data out of Jotform and put it into whatever systems that they want. Enterprises love that simply because they allow us to do what we do best, and then they feed the other systems.
Definitely.
Right. And they have, I mean, we're not getting into a greenfield application, right? They have processes in place. They have a CRM tool in place. They have their data storage systems in place. In the case of healthcare, they have their medical record systems in place. And the fact that we are able to play nicely with all of those, we have integrations out of the box. And in those rare instances where, let's say, an organization using a 40-year-old EHR system, they're still able to integrate our data to their system through webhooks, through APIs. Mm-hmm. It's very, very seamless. And I want to also touch upon one other thing. Our listeners may have heard of this new movement around low code, no code. In most organizations, there's an IT team that is responsible for building applications within the platform. Every organization, not everything that is off the shelf is going to be usable for your organization. Let's say you're tracking your truck fleet, right? And they want to have these tools. And most of the time, those applications are built in-house or they outsource it, but it has to be built, purpose-built. But somebody who needs to, who does that needs to be, proficient in programming and application development, whereas with our tools, anybody can become a builder of applications. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to know JavaScript, HTML, CSS, none of those acronyms, right?
Just have to drag and drop.
You just have to drag and drop. You build your application. And we have even more exciting features coming down the line where we're going to be able to give apps to organizations where they have all of their HR forms, and it goes to automatically installs on everybody's phone. And if they want to take a day off, the app, let's say the company.com app is there on their phone. They can just click on it, find the right form, fill out that form, and everything is in one place. And that is just a phenomenal thing. And IT organizations love it because forever they have been the bottleneck. I mean, there's a huge demand. Everybody wants an application that is built inside the organization, and it all comes to IT, and they have a obviously limited resources to build all those applications, and they become the bottleneck. And when they give that ability to give people the ability to build their own applications, that really takes the load off of the IT team there.
And that no code sort of place that we have in the market that I'm not going to call it's not a marketing gimmick because it's who we are. Right. But that's just as attractive to an enterprise business as it is to a solopreneur. Just Absolutely. Because you're a large business doesn't mean you're still not going to want no code, because it takes so much off your plate as an enterprise business. So that has been in Jotform's DNA since we started in 2006. And even now, 15 years later, even with massive businesses worldwide, it's still very much a selling point for us, obviously. You've mentioned a few times throughout the course of the conversation. I think I understand a lot of the benefits that enterprise offers as far as SSO, security, some of these other things. Can you talk a little bit specifically about the separate server for enterprise? What benefit does having a separate server give enterprise customers?
Sure. I touched upon this earlier, but so you have the fact that your forms and your data are physically removed from the rest of the Jotform Enterprise, Jotform standard users' shared server environment. That's the key thing, the custom domain, the SSO integration. But one thing that we didn't touch upon is because it's a dedicated server, you're able to choose the location of that server. And a lot of countries, and I can name Australia, Canada, UK, the entire EU region, they have mandates to keep the data within the country.
Right. That's
so,
significant.
Yeah, for an Australian business, for instance, if they, but they have a mandate from the government where any data that they collect from the citizens, it needs to remain in country. So when a Jotform Enterprise customer from Australia buys 100% of them, they have their data servers in their data centers in our Sydney data center. So that way the data never leaves the country, and this is a huge benefit in international markets.
Right. Yeah, I didn't realize that, but it makes sense. They couldn't even start to approach using our platform without even that being an option, being a possibility.
Precisely.
So I guess, and segueing into that a little bit, I'd like to take a bit of a step back and talk about the context of our products around enterprise and what our strategy is versus, some other technology companies. They reserve a lot of their actual products specifically for enterprise. Whereas Jotform, everyone, paid or non-paid, can use, Jotform tables, can use Jotform approvals, can use, our PDF features. That is not what is price gated for us or for enterprise users. Instead, we focused in on a couple very specific things that are exclusive only to enterprise. So I guess, could you talk a little bit about our strategy behind what we choose from product perspective to make available to everyone and what we choose to make available to enterprise members, and how our strategy is maybe a little bit unique from some of the competitors we see in the space?
That's once again a great question. So with our standard platform, like you said, you have pretty much access to all of the features out there, minus the super enterprise specific ones like the single sign-on,
Right.
multiple users, etc. But I see Jotform Enterprise as a startup within a larger startup, because those 11 million users, they are essentially our lead generation machine. Right? The more features that we provide in our freemium offering, the better, because they use that platform and it's sticky. They include somebody else into their approval process, and that person becomes aware of Jotform as a product, and they become a user. And as we increase the user count on the freemium product, that really is a mining field for us that just trickles down really into enterprise as a lead generation machine.
You mentioned sticky a few times. Can you clarify a little bit more what you mean by Jotform being sticky?
Sure. So when an organization deploys Jotform Enterprise, the solution becomes ingrained into their processes, from then data intake to data processing to analysis to reporting. It really gets ingrained into the application atmosphere or stratosphere that they have built. So, and I use the word sticky not as they can't really get rid of us, but it's really something that really becomes part of their entire technology ecosystem. So it is, and this is something that we're super proud of. We have a super high renewal rates and very, very low churn rates, because if the customer is using Jotform Enterprise, it really becomes part of their technology stack, really.
Right.
Yeah, we've seen even some government agencies that have come to us and said, everything we do is paper, Tim, and now with COVID, not only can we not do paper, but our people are scattered throughout. What can you do for us? And we start from that point. A year later, flash to a year later, they have over 500 forms. Over 350,000 people have filled out forms. You see the power of what Jotform can do. And now their constituents are raving about the county, saying, since COVID, you guys have become super efficient. And it's easy to make appointments, and it's easy to fill out paperwork, and everything's online. And it just revolutionizes businesses.
Sure. I mean, we're giving companies genuinely a new way to work. And once you've opened that door, it's hard to go back. Right. And that's kind of the whole
because
point.
why would you?
Right.
Why would you?
Right.
And the speed to change is people are shocked, number one, how easy it is to get up and running. From an enterprise perspective, we go from signature to the server setup within an hour. and delivering that to the customers and getting their forms out, importing their existing forms into their enterprise server, and the speed at which we can make solutions happen. And that's what fires me up every day, is the ability to help people. As my wife says, this is the ultimate guy tool. I solve so many problems with Jotform because it does so much in helping people at a record time make change in that organization, and especially in these days where you have to reinvent yourself. Jotform is a big part of that with our enterprise customers.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the early years of enterprise. Some of what features did we have in place right when we launched enterprise, and what were some of our early learnings that sort of guided our enterprise strategy as we were just setting out on this journey?
So it really started with the ability to answer the IT security questionnaires, the ability to have multiple users, and a lot of the enterprise specific features have been then added on because our customers ask for it.
Right.
And this is one of the key benefits from a customer perspective. You have direct access through our enterprise support team, through your account manager. You have direct access and direct influence on what gets built next. When you're one of the 11 million plus standard users, you may have a feature request, but guess what? You're going to be, one of the 11 million, requests out there. But if you're a large, if you're an enterprise customer, you don't have to be large, by the way. You can be any enterprise customer. Your requests get prioritized from a feature request perspective, from a if there are occasional bugs, they get handled much faster.
Sure.
So, but our roadmap is determined by our conversations with our customers, and that is key. We have a team of customer success people whose job is to listen to the customers. What do you need? How are you using the platform? How can we get better? How can we do this better for you? What other features do you need? And that constant two-way conversation is really what drives us, what drives our roadmap, what determines what we deliver for our customers. And that the fact that they have that input, that huge influence on our roadmap, is really our strength, and also a huge benefit to them.
Are you willing and able to maybe share an example of something that was suggested or requested by an enterprise customer that we didn't originally have that we ended up developing?
Sure. I'll give you one example. A lot of the times, for instance, if you wanted to do a search for a specific, in EU, they have these rules around, forget me rules, right? If somebody says, I want all of my records from your company to be stricken from the record, I don't want to be forgotten. Guess what? You have hundreds and thousands of forms that you're collecting, and for instance, with the single user plans, you can only search one user's forms. And if you wanted to do, a search for that specific John Smith entry, that would take you hours and days to just find it. That's just an unnecessary, tedious work.
Right.
Whereas with enterprise, when we got that request, we were pretty quickly able to put that into action, where you have a server-wide search. Give me all instances on John Smith, and then you can say check all and delete all.
And you're probably like, this would be a request that all our enterprise users could actually use, even if they haven't thought of it yet.
Absolutely, and that's what determines, right? What gets prioritized. Right? If it's something that is very, very, one customer specific, that gets a backseat to something that would benefit all of our enterprise customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Adding the value to everyone, right? So let's shift gears a little bit here. I think we've really covered the territory of what enterprise is, how it helps customers. So let's talk a little bit about actually being an enterprise team member. Could you just walk us through maybe a standard day for you and Tim? I mean, I'm curious myself. What does it actually entail being an enterprise team member at Jotform?
Great question. You want to kick it off?
Sure. It is. It is probably one of the most exciting jobs that I've had. From the perspective is there's just so much to do, and so many details to follow up on. So much interest in the product itself. It's a day in the life. Of course, everything is driven by our CRM, making sure that that virtually tells me I get up and here's what I need to do first and foremost is task, get emails out, move deals forward, and then scheduling is being able to schedule customer calls, being able to identify, is this a prospect call, is this a discovery call, and build from there. And then there's the plot twists in the day that are
always
that always seem to come up, and you think you know what you're going to do, and it never turns out quite like that. And I find myself, and I'm blessed with being able to work from home. And in fact, I work outside by my pool.
And must be nice.
It is. It's life is good, and. The next thing you know, my wife comes out and says it's dinner time, and you just don't realize that an entire day has passed, and you just go, and then the next day dawns, and you start again.
It's a very, very fast-paced environment, and all of my team members, and we have people across the globe. Everybody's working from their home offices, and you get up. That lead generation machine that I mentioned, it keeps constantly churning. People reaching out to us, asking about Jotform Enterprise. How can I get in? What's the pricing, etc. So a lot of your day is about responding to those incoming inquiries, and then you have. These demos and Q&A sessions and meetings with prospects. And of course, you're also an account manager, right? You're talking to existing customers, making sure that they're happy, asking about their feature needs, etc. And I have scheduled periodic meetings with our larger customers on a constant basis. And those meetings essentially, again, drive where we go from here.
Right. So you're really wearing kind of both the hats of trying to get them in the door, talking to prospects, but also just maintaining the accounts and making sure that everyone's happy.
Most definitely.
So how does, you mentioned that Enterprise, of course, it started 3 years ago kind of as a separate faction of Jotform, right? How does the Enterprise team intersect with all the other teams at Jotform? What are your touch points with them? Do you more or less just kind of keep to yourselves? Is there a lot of intersection? How are those dynamics?
We work very closely with our product development team and our engineering team, mostly because we're in constant need of additional features, feature requests coming from our customers. So I would say the engineering team, and we have a specific dedicated engineering team for our enterprise platform. We have product manager, we have engineers, we have developers, we have customer success team. So we work very, very closely with them. But we also work with the marketing folks, the growth folks, the data analytics folks, because we are blessed with a large number of customers. We're now into getting into the territory of the big numbers and finding out trends. So I work with our business analytics, business intelligence team also very, very closely. And it is definitely not an island. We're very much entrenched into the business, and we're working with we're touching every single group inside the company.
Right. Sometimes you might even do a podcast with marketing.
Sometimes, yes.
It might happen. Not to put you on the spot, but curious, do you have any particularly interesting experience or anecdote or anything else that you've experienced in your enterprise career that you'd be willing to share?
This is the first job I've had one of my customers call up and say, "What else do you guys sell?"
That's great.
They love the product, and most importantly, they love the support, and our support is second to none. They've come to us with problems. Support's been able to help them in record time. What else can we buy from you? What else products do you have? And as I explained, the beauty of what Jotform is and why we're able to do what we do is we focus on that one thing, and we do it really, really well.
Right.
And that's the secret sauce. Is we're not VC funded. We're not forced into making decisions just because we need to have an outlay of cash or whatever the reasons might be. We're a 14-year-old mature company, and when people try our product, and it's interesting being on the West Coast, I see the who's who of tech companies, and they'll talk about an enterprise license and say, "Oh, what do you mean? I can build it for cheaper than that." So, yeah, you probably could, but when you look at our features and what we do, you probably will think twice. And 80% of the time, 2 weeks later, they come back with a check in hand and saying, yeah, you're right. It's a problem we don't need to solve. You've guys solved it.
Right.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is work with customers who would like to embed our solution into their own application. So, and we have, for our larger customers, we have these customization opportunities where, for instance, somebody says, I want to embed your form builder into my application such that, and it's going to be completely white labeled. You guys are not going to be visible. And we're able to accommodate those requests, right? We're able to work with them because it's a dedicated server. We're able to, turn things on and off and customize it for them. And then, and these integrations, by the way, to go back to the API comment from Tim, it can be 100% graphical user interface, like GUI based, or it could be 100% API based, or it could be somewhere in between, right? And most of our customers end up in somewhere in that continuum where they use some of our GUI elements and they use their own GUI and use our API to access the platform.
Right. No, that's incredible. And really being able to give them what they want, I guess, at the end of the day is the key. So we're sort of drawing to the end here, but I have sort of two conceptual questions that I'd like to ask and sort of finish on. Again, for our listeners who might be coming from the client side, might be coming from the enterprise side, the questions that I had are, first off, if you are on the enterprise side, what are some general best practices or learnings you can share about building a successful enterprise program in the SaaS space? And then secondly, if you're on the client side, how do you start to seek out a good enterprise program if you're a client? And how do you know if it's the right one for you?
Okay, I'll take the first one. I'll pass the second one over to Tim. So how do you build a successful enterprise team? So you could start like we do with a freemium platform and then go up markets into the enterprise. And in some instances, you may start directly as an enterprise entity and then just build around it. The way that we approached it has the benefit of not having to have a huge investment upfront, right? The company, as we discussed, has been around since 2006 and has built a user base and a product where
infrastructure was there.
We were able to build our enterprise offering over on top of that, right? Getting that support of the larger organization, and that allowed us to build an enterprise sales and support team from ground up without having to raise any VC money, completely bootstrapped, right? And we're growing at our own pace. We don't have the VC gun in our heads. You should hire 10 more people within this quarter. Because
pivotal.
I find recruiting to be extremely important. We want to hire the right people. We want to bring on the right people. And when you rush things, things usually fall apart.
It's important to grow the right way.
Exactly. It's important to grow your own way, right? There's no template that works for everybody. It's how whatever your product demands, whatever your market demands, and how you really want to shape your business.
That's a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
Right. In growing enterprise business, it all starts with trust. They're, two corporations doing business together, but they're people. And being able to, number one, properly diagnose that you can actually add value, solve issues. Number two, ensure quality is when people look to you to become the mouth of the organization by collecting data of various sorts. That's a big responsibility, and you can't have a system that goes up and down because we're people's lifeline.
Right.
So you have to provide a quality product, support it well. When something does come up, when you hit those bumps, like any business deal, you're in a relationship with people, and you have to build up trust and goodwill. And when it gets bumpy, fix it, or be honest with people and saying, this is going to take a week. And what are the alternatives? And Jotform delivers that on a daily basis. Is they've built up that that reputation with our customers, not only responding to when there's a crisis, but being proactive in being a consultant. Is they'll call us up, schedule some time with our tech support people, because of course that's included with your enterprise, and saying, here's where I want to be. This is the destination. What's the best way in which to build? And they leverage that asset of the brains of our enterprise guys, that saying, oh, we should do it this way, this way, this way. And at the end product, it's a collaboration with our team. So that from an enterprise perspective, that's how you expand the product as well. It's constantly growing, constantly forms are evolving, process flows are constantly changing. It's giving them the tools and the support to do that.
Listening, communication, collaboration, and all the tenets of success, right? So
Sure.
finally, as a client, whether they're a prospective Jotform user or not, how do you sniff out a good enterprise company? What are the things that you look for if you're prospecting enterprise level services that should make you want to pull the trigger?
Somebody who needs to build processes, somebody who needs to collect internal, external, or both data, somebody who needs to analyze a large amount of data that is being collected, and somebody who needs to really own the data, really own their data collection mechanism, as opposed to having it in multiple different hands without any central control. These are the identifiers of the target customer for us.
What about the other way around? If you're the customer, what are you looking for in a company that can really make you feel comfortable moving forward with an enterprise level contract? Is it the relationships? Is it the size? Is it the security? What are some of the tenets to look for when you're prospecting?
I think Tim hit the nail on the head. Is trust. It's the personal relationships, right? So when we're talking to our customers, we build that rapport. Obviously, during COVID times, it has always been over Zoom without any, a real handshake. But we're able to build that personal relationship with our customers. And as a buyer, as a decision maker, you really want to be working with people that you trust, that you know that they can deliver. And from a customer success perspective, that access, direct access, real-time access to the account manager, the customer success team, the technical support team, those are the things that you should really be looking for. Because if somebody sells you a solution and then you never hear back from them again, you cannot reach them, that is not a good solution. It could be the most perfect product, but if you don't have the support for it, it's not going to go anywhere.
I think that's huge, the accessibility, right? You guys are investing your time in them, just like Jotform is investing our time in them.
Right.
And it's a reciprocal relationship, and that's really key.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. Gentlemen, that's all I have for today, but I just want to thank you both again for coming on and lending your time. This has been really insightful for me personally, as I hope it's been for our listeners. So thank you again.
Excellent. Thanks, Elliot.
Awesome. Take care.
Cheers.